forget about.
Our next caller is Gary from Memphis, and he's got a question about the role of laws that legislate our activity on Sunday.
Hello, my name is Gary Harrison, calling from Memphis, Tennessee, and I listen to your fine program on WCRV radio here in Memphis. My question for you is regarding Sunday legislation. I understand there is quite a strong Sunday legislation movement in Europe, in the European Union, and I believe even the country of Germany has just recently ratified Sunday laws. And I was wondering if you thought this was an appropriate use of government authority. So I'd appreciate your insight on this important religious liberty question. Thanks so much, R.C. Have a good day.
Thank you, Gary, for that question. I hope everything's going well there in Memphis, the home of jazz at Beale Street rather than in New Orleans, and America's cultural center of barbecued ribs. It's good to hear from you there. Memphis is a town I really love, by the way. You know, when I grew up 100 years ago in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania was noted for what were called the blue laws. I grew up at a time where the only store in our town that was open on Sunday was the drugstore, and there the only part of the drugstore was the pharmacy section, and that for a limited period of time. All other commercial enterprises in our town were closed on the Sabbath day because it was a matter of law in the state of Pennsylvania that there would be no unnecessary commerce being involved on Sunday. And that had a long history in it. And, of course, in the 50s and beyond, the blue laws were overthrown and everything changed, as you know, in this country. But the getting rid of Sabbath laws is a relatively recent matter in the American culture. Now, the question, of course, is a complicated one because it involves that alleged distinction or separation of church and state. Now, from a biblical perspective and from a Christian perspective, we understand that there is a distinction between the government and the church, and God has ordained both the church and the civil magistrate, and both are accountable to God. And it is not the function of the church to pass legislation in the legislature to forcing people to take the sacraments or to preach the gospel, and nor is it the responsibility of the church to wage war or impose taxes. There's different tasks given to the state and to the church. And the question of Sabbath keeping, however, is a question of the origin and the institution and the application of the Sabbath. Is the Sabbath something that was created originally in the Mosaic dispensation of the Old Testament? Or was the Sabbath instituted before the Mosaic covenant? And the argument for that usually runs like this, that the Sabbath was not ordained or instituted by Moses merely for the Jewish people, but was established in creation on the seventh day as part of the covenant of creation, which would mean that the observation of the Sabbath is given not to Jew as Jew or Christian as Christian, but to man qua man. That this is an ordinance that everybody is supposed to obey, and it would fall under the responsibility of the civil government to regulate it. And so I, for one, as ancient as I may sound, believe that it is the government's responsibility to protect the sanctity of the Sabbath day for the well-being of human beings.